Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our discussion about the web programming. So, in this video, we are going to have a brief introduction about web programming, why we need web programming, as well as how to become a web programmer. So, first of all, we need to understand why we have web and why we need to develop for a web. In the past, if you want to access to the internet, so you need to use terminal or command shell or command prompt to connect to another computer. And of course, that is somehow a trouble, especially nowadays. We are using a mouse, a keyboard, a browser to access to any website on the internet, right? And because of that, there were a need for something to make it easier for us to access to the internet. That's what brings the web. Basically, with the web, we have a tools such as browser that we can use to access to the internet. And in the past, for example, if you are going to send an email to someone, you need to type mail to and then the email address of that person followed by the subject and then equal first statement. You see the orange color there. So it is not suitable for current era. And on the other way, as a user, when you are using a browser and you go to your email server, you can just write the email address, the subject, and also the content, then send the email. So basically, internet and web are two different things. However, they complement each other, so they work together. All right. So the web is working on the top of the internet. However, the web were not as we know it right now. At the early ages of web, we call it Web 1.0, and that were in 1991 and last until almost 2004. Websites were consist of static web pages. So the user will be able to come, navigate, explore, move from one page to another web page, but user is not able to do a chat, to write a post, or to interact as we do right now. However, the user were able only to do one task, which is send an email. So that's how Web 1.0 looks. Boring. Here is an example of what static web look like. In front of you is the website of fatoni University, and most universities in the world implement their portal, or let's say their main website to be static web. So the user will be able to come discover the departments, the faculties, and some information about that university. So, however, the user can't do anything there mostly. And that brings the next stage, which is Web 2.0. It is not a new software. It is not something different from the previous one. No, it is just an updated version. So it includes much more improvement for what Web 1.0 has, such as the user were able, the users started to be able to generate content on the web, writing a post, writing a blog, uploading video, uploading audio, chatting with friends. So all of that become available with Web 2.0. That begins since 2004 and lasts almost until 2010. The next stage of web called Web 3.0, and it is the stage where the machine become able to read the, the internet data. So the machine become able to read the internet data. And Web 3.0, it's expected that it begins around 2006, 2008, but currently is the era of Web 3.0. However, as a developer, when you start to develop, you start with developing a static website because that is how it is going to move. You go step by step. So firstly, you develop a static website, and then you start to add much more improvement. Sometimes we may include some helpful code from Web3 in our static web. So in the future, it will be easier for us to update it. Here are some statistics about web, about development, about software. So in the world, there is almost 1 billion plus websites. And these websites were made by developers. Software developers in the world are expected to be around software development in the world are almost 30 million developers. However, some of them are specialized to develop for a web. some of them for operating systems, and much more. So the number of internet developers are less. I mean, web developers are less than 30 million. However, even this huge number, there is still a need for developers who work to develop websites. So, for example, in USA, there is around 1,400,000 unfilled computer science jobs. At the same time, the number of graduates in computer science are only for almost 300,000 graduates. So you see there is a gap almost more than 1 million. And of course, there is also a need for specialization in web development. So there is a need for developers for a web who are specialized in data mining, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and much more. So yeah, you have the chance to go for this. And when talking about websites, there are a variety of websites there, such as government website, educational website, e-commerce website, companies website, social media, personal website, and also entertainment website. So you need also to be specified which website that you want to develop right now. I mean, you are studying now, you are watching this video, so you need to know which website that you are going to develop. And remember that when we are going to make a website, we need all of these tools together. So first of all, as a developer, you need to have a code editor. And we are going to use the code editor to write our code, or what we call it a web authoring tool. Okay, so a code editor will help us to write our code. Then we are going to use a file upload tool to upload our files, our website, to be available for users. And to do so, we have to upload it to a server on the web. So we need to upload our files on a server on the web, and that will be by using file upload tool. We are going to upload it to an file transfer protocol server, and that file transfer protocol server is going to manage the web page storage and retrieval. And last stage, the user will use his PC and web browser to access to the web pages. So as a developer, you need the following tools. First is code editor, and the second is a browser. The code editor, so where you are going to write your code, and the browser to test your code before we go for later stage to upload and make it available online. And some of code editors, as you can see in front of you, Sublime, VS Code, PHP Storm. So as open source and free of use, you may go for the VS Code. And browser, there are a variety of browsers. You can use Google Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Microsoft Edge, and also the Safari browser. Later on, when you are going to collaborate with your friends, when you work in a team, when you go to work for a company, you may need a collaboration tool, such as Git. And Git will help you to keep up with different versions of the code that you write, you yourself. However, GitHub, you can use it to share your code with other members of your teams. So all of you can edit the code together, and you still can go to different versions of the code. Such as today you updated the code, tomorrow you want to ignore the updates and use what have since yesterday, so you can do it. At the beginning of 1990s, there were the beginning of the web. And since then, there were programming languages serve the development of the web. As you can see in the video in front of you, in around 1994, there were JavaScript. In 1998, there were PHP, and also other languages are used for development for the web. So there are a variety of programming languages that we may use. However, um, at the beginning, we need to begin with the markup language to mark our web page content. So there are a variety of programming languages, and we need to be precise to which language that we are going to use to develop our website. So if we are talking about programming languages, there are JavaScript, PHP, Python, Java, etc. So there are a lot, and there are much more. So how we can go with this? First of all, remember that web development roadmap consists of two ways. There is front-end development as well as back-end development. So either you become front-end developer or back-end developer, or you can be both together, and that's what we call a full stack developer. So front-end development consists of three languages. Hypertext markup language, which will be used to define the content of the web page, such as image, video, heading, paragraph, etc. There is cascading style sheet, which will be used to style the content, make it colorful, make it in suitable design, And the last one is JavaScript, which will help us to provide much more interactive experience for the user. Basically, you start with HTML and CSS, and that is how the road of front-end developer. Yet, there is also back-end development, and in back-end, you may go for Node.js or PHP or ASP or Python. So for front-end, you need to take it all. I mean, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. For back-end, you may go for one only, all right? At the same time, you need to also use a database management system such as MongoDB or MySQL. So this is just an example. Either of them will be used to store the user's data there. Now, the question to you, what would you like to become? Write your answer in the comment below. Are you going to be a front-end developer, back-end developer, or full stack developer? Go and write it. I will read your comments. So my suggestion, if you are going to be a web developer, you go and learn HTML and CSS. That is at first. And later on, you start to go for JavaScript. After that, you develop your static website. Then you try to improve it by using PHP programming language. Why PHP? Because it is fast, and almost 78% of websites worldwide using PHP. At the same time, don't forget to read about the Python programming language, because in this year, 2020, November, Python were the top popular language in the world. So maybe right now the trend is PHP. The popularity is PHP for the current servers, but maybe after it's expected after 5 years or maybe 10 years that most of websites could or may use Python programming language. And as a developer, you need someone to hire you. So yeah, you may be able to upgrade yourself, okay? As you can see in front of you, Python is number 1 and PHP is number 10. And honestly, PHP last year were number 8. So now it decreased. And that is something to consider. In summary, you need to use a code editor and a browser, as well as you may go to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. After that, you go for PHP and also MySQL. For those who study this subject with me, you may go to Google Classroom and find the assignment there. Salam.